all kinds of stuff that's been dumped. Go ahead. This is the Clear Lake subdivision. There are 6,000 lots up here. Most of them are 50 by 100 or smaller. Uh, and, okay. This is Queenie's residence. This was pulled in about 4 years ago in the middle of a rainy night by a tractor and dumped up there on a hill, and they lived in it until just this fall, and they're no longer there. Go ahead. These cars just show up everywhere. This is Cody Culver's truck, and this is I think maybe it was a stolen car that got left up there, and it just disappeared. This is the other side of Queenie's encampment. Go ahead. This car, I took CHP down, and they don't want to deal with it. They're not going to pull it out. But this is maybe a football field away from my house on a small dirt trail that goes from one road to another road. Okay. This is at the cell tower site, and there's a Suburban that's been there forever, and there's a huge pile of garbage which is deteriorated. This is on Main Street. I was just talking about this. This is a place where it was cleaned up completely. There was no garbage here at all. There are several slides of this area. This is another view looking down the road there. This was dumped on the road above my house, maybe 300 feet above my house. This is Cody Culver's encampment, which is it's an illegal encampment. He's been there for 2 years or better. He's kind of on his own lots. He owns 2 lots in the area, but he's only half on them. And now that's developed even further. Go ahead. This is another view at the cell tower. Go ahead. And I'm not exactly sure where this is. This may be on Main Street again. This is on Pile Road there, and this has even gotten worse at this point. This is left there right beside that other one. This is on Pile Road, and this is on Pile Road. A lot of these I've got GPS coordinates on. This is on Pile Road where they started a fire a couple of years ago. This is further up that road, up towards the cell tower. There was a guy living in there. He's been gone for about 2 months now, so nobody's there, but the pile of stuff is still there. This was a pot grow, and it did get cleaned up. They came in and cut down all the plants, all except for 6 of them, I guess. These were the dogs that were running loose. She had 8 dogs up there in Queenie's encampment, and she didn't control them at all. They were all over the place. I went out one afternoon, and there were 5 chihuahuas chasing deer. It was actually pretty funny. This has been cleaned up. The guy who owned it found it up there. It was parked up there. I told CHP about it. They didn't even look at it, I don't believe. And it was eventually trashed, completely stripped, turned over, rolled down a hill. And the guy found it, and he pulled it out of there so he could get the cash money he could get from a junkyard. This is a pile of household stuff, probably left when somebody died, and somebody paid them to carry the stuff off and take it to the dump, and so it ended up on the road up in the middle of the hill. That's the other side of that pile. This is just roofing debris that some guy dumped beside the road on Main Street. These were addresses that we found right up on the point. This is a really nice place. You look out over Lake County and you see the whole lake and all of Pile Road. And so we found this. Go ahead. This is also up there at that point. That car was burned one night, and I watched the fire department up there working on it. This is the same place. This is another pile of household debris. Apparently somebody died and they dumped it. And all this stuff is washing down into the lake. All the stuff, there's diapers and all kinds of junk in it. This was a stolen car. CHP told me to get away from it and not come back until there was an officer present, which I did. And they came and towed that one out. Another pile of debris. Oh yeah, this is on the back side over Monroe Street, Morton Street. I'm sorry. This has been there for the 20 years I've lived in Lake County. This boat is full of garbage and it's been sitting there. This is on King Street. It's a pile of debris. There was some guy living in the bushes there, and code enforcement came and eventually put up a notice to get it quit or whatever, and he left, but he left all of his garbage. Oh, that's his Main Street again. More Main Street. More Main Street. That's Main Street. This is Morton Street. This was all on a trailer. They had a trailer that was heaped high with it, and apparently they needed to use the trailer, so they dumped it all there on the road, and then somebody cleaned it up into red plastic bags, and now they've thrown that over the bank, and so it's still there. Oh, these are my open code complaints. There's a couple of closed ones there. The other slide is that too. All right.
Thank you for that, Dave. And I think Marcus, a couple like last year or something like that, we went on a ride with Dave and Mike. Was it?
Yes,
Mike.
Mike.
Yeah,
Mike
we went on a ride and seen a lot of these different areas. And I know that at the Worth meeting we talked about the ad hoc committee putting in a lot of different input when it came to the marking of the area. Like they have everything mapped on Google and whatnot. So just wanted to give that opportunity for them to come.
And I do want to add, this grant, a lot of the sites that were based on Mr. Hendrick's maps. So he came to us with his map, he showed us those sites, we then went out, searched out for funds to address these issues, and his map was used as the basis for the submission of our grant. So this is kind of a partnership working with the community, letting them know what the issues are, and then we went out, found the resources to address that, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish in phase 1 of this project.
And I know
Okay.
that too, the camera that's out there, there's a license plate reader and it keeps getting broke at Pile Road, so.
Yeah, they knocked it down again.
Yeah, and so, yeah. So, yeah, I think we're gonna have to work, on my end, I'm gonna have to work on getting another cam or something that's gonna complement that one, so we see who does it.
Oh.
We are definitely interested in any collaboration with other groups and community residents around the prevention measures and education and free dump days. So we could maybe schedule something to talk about how we want to address really the Nice Hills in terms of those items in particular, prevention measures, cameras, et cetera.
And the free dump days are included in the Cal Recycle grant as well.
We do have some money for those days as well.
Okay, well, I have a Google map of 70 sites around the Clear Lake Gardens area, which is interactive, and I keep adding to it, and I'm happy to share it with you. So far, I don't believe anybody from the county has been able to open it, but it's a Google map site, and I can share it however you like. Anyway, I do have public comments later, I guess.
I'll let these folks go and then I'll open it up for sure, for the supervisors. Go ahead.
I feel for Chair Crandall, paper parcels are a really big burden to have to deal with. I think it's a good opportunity. Again, not sure what the funding availability is, or maybe a proposal can come back to us. But I know the city of Clear Lake has had some success with K-rails by blocking off certain areas where there's no houses whatsoever. Obviously, people can still walk in to the area or jump over the K-rails, but at least vehicles, unless they're willing to bash their vehicles in order to move the K-rails, which does occur, but it at least limits the amount of access to very isolated areas. And those areas, unfortunately, is just a wide open playground for people to do bad things. So I feel you on that. I deal with it as well in the areas of Clear Lake and District 2. Paper parcels are just a hassle.
Supervisor Rasmussen, did you have something? Nothing further. Okay. So I'll go ahead and open it up for the public, and if anyone want to come up and make a comment, Dave, you by all means can make your comment. I know you wrote one as well.
Yeah, I wrote a whole bunch of stuff, but I said a lot of it already. So I just think that we really need to have some action in terms of prevention. We need to stop these people from being able to get up there, or somehow record them going up there. Mike and I have both stopped people from going up there and dumping. He got his mule run into by a vehicle when he was trying to stop some guy from dumping. The guy was getting the hell out. I chased the guy down, found out where he lived, and we got him to clean up the mess. It took him 5 hours to get the trailer that he dumped up there out. So he got his punishment out of it. But he got paid $100 by his father-in-law to dump this trailer at the landfill. And he chose to just dump it off up there. And so that's what we need to do is change the way people think around here. It's a beautiful area up there. It's gorgeous. I ride up there almost every day, and I ride past these piles and piles and piles of trash, and they're just everywhere. I only showed about half of it, and I can think of 7 or 8 vehicles that are dumped in the woods there that are on my map, but they're not going to get them out easily. And I would just like to see something happen. And this grant being spent in an appropriate way and efficiently to get this stuff done and keep the pollution from going in the lake. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I know that Vance Ricks and myself went and cleaned up one area like right by, and it took such a long. It would have taken even longer had we filled up a trailer full, and it's just there's still so much you have to get on the ground because it sits so long. But yeah, that's the unfortunate thing is we end up putting all of this work into getting it up, and then they do it again, and we're back and forth. I know folks are always skeptical when we do dump days with different agencies and whatnot, but it's like, well, it still takes a lot to get it even though, so it's almost better to do the dump days. It's like what chicken and the egg, I guess you could say. So anyhow, anyone else want to?
Lars Ewing, Public Services Director. So Public Services Department has the responsibility to oversee the countywide integrated waste management plan, and there's a lot that goes into waste management. Illegal dumping is one component of that, and I just wanted to say thank you to the community development staff, specifically Maria, Shannon, and Marcus, for taking on something that has in my 6 or 8 years with public services been a struggle, and they've taken it and run with it. So we're never going to get to the 100% solution, but I really appreciate that we have a department that's willing to take it on and try to solve a problem, and continuing to see where there are problems, how can we solve that. So we've been working together primarily through the Solid Waste Task Force, which continues, and whether it's through the task force or at a staff level, they're a pleasure to work with. So I just wanted to extend my thanks.
I have a brief question before you sit down. Sorry for the random question. Do you know approximately how much you bring in at the landfill on fees alone?
That's a challenging question to answer definitively, but
I'm looking for approximate.
Yeah, the landfill as an enterprise fund, it's a business. We don't rely on the general fund at all. But fees, whether it's curbside fees or just someone coming in with their trailer, I think we're in the range of somewhere around $3 million per year. But it's we have certain funds that are paying for quite a lot of things at the landfill, whether it's expansion, equipment. Right. And I'm not sure.
I'm looking for those going to the landfill to dump their loads. not the ones on curbside, because they're paying a different type of bill
Yeah,
there.
that, off the top of my head, I don't, but I think it's likely about 25%, somewhere in the 25% range of the overall
I'm just
cost.
kind of curious as to what's the cost of paying code enforcement? What's the cost of abatement? What's the cost of what we leave behind that we can't get to versus the cost of dumping? And if ever we were to try to keep you whole, obviously, we can't just take away the 3 million or 25% of the 3 million, but to keep you whole and just say, hey, we're paying for the landfill to be open and available for anyone to just go and dump as long as you can prove you're from Lake County or something along those lines. Do we see a reduction in dumping illegally? Just a thought of kind of doing the equation of what's the cost versus the loss.
All right.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Because that's an enormous amount of stuff that was just shown to us, and it's sad.
Yeah. Any other? Come on up. There's one on Zoom. Okay.
Hi, I'm Thomas Aceves. I'm on the from Nice. I'm on the member of the Worth board as well for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm also an advocate for cleaning our North Shore. I've been doing it for 7 or more years on the Nice Cutoff with a team of people. And the adoption program is a wonderful program. Hopefully we can promote that more. I got a lot of thoughts on this, and I think I've talked to Marcus before about, I'm so glad we're getting the money to do this cleanup in these hills and areas. However, like the Nice Cutoff, it's going to be repolluted soon after, or amazing, So I think some elements have to be looked at, and I think Supervisor Sabatier mentioned an out-of-box thinking here. I think we really have to think about doing more dump days, maybe even putting a bin at Pile Road for people just to throw stuff away in for free, and paying more money and putting money in those areas that we can help persuade that behavior to consolidate it, to a certain area, so they're not just in our hills. I'm telling you, North Shore, especially through Nice, I do a lot of you guys know I'm a avid cyclist. I ride through there a lot, and I see things on the ground, like between the freeway, maybe getting together with Caltrans, they need to do more cleanup on the freeways, and so forth. But I think out-of-box thinking has to be implemented here, like putting more cleanup days, more bins in places, like what you just said, Supervisor, about maybe opening the transfer station up for free days, more things to be free, and implementing. Also, I'm really an advocate of, and it hasn't always been looked upon as something positive, but universal trash collection. I'm really for that. It needs to be done, and I know it's a difficult process for many, but I'm sorry. People have to be forced into doing things, because I have a lot of neighborhoods in my area that have trash in the back, trash in the front, garbage everywhere. And a lot of that has to do is because they don't have buckets to throw their stuff in. And you get 2 free items that can help. So I really hope the supervisors think about implementing an ordinance for universal trash collection this year. So there's some thoughts on that. But thanks. I'm glad we have the grants. Hopefully we get more. Continue the process of eliminating this blight and making our area more enjoyable for our travelers and for tourism and coming over to us. Because I was over cycling in Napa Valley and enjoying myself, and I said, man, if we can get some people to come over to our side that spend millions of dollars in their side, that would be fantastic. So thank you so much.
Hi, Elaine Brown. I lived in Fresno, California for 12 years, and twice a year they let everyone just throw, and the households, all in the streets, all their trash that they just want to throw in the streets. And then I don't know how they collect it, how they do that, but everyone throws their trash in the street twice a year back then. You might want to call them and see how they do that. And then maybe those people that have extra trash and that don't have trash can, like, in their backyards, can just put it out there too.
I know that they I think CNS Waste came to a couple of meetings here and there, and then when we do the dump days in Lucerne, folks that are waiting in line, we notify them that you can actually do 2 big items. If you have garbage service, you just have to notify them and they'll come get it. There's those things. We've done 3 in Lucerne, and that's almost 60,000. I don't know. I keep saying tons, but it's not tons. It's 20,000 cubic yards, and so total of 60,000. I don't know how many tons that is, but we were looking at doing one as well in with Worth. So yeah, just those type of things, and I know that the garbage portion of it with the bins are going to be good. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in public input? All right. All right, Tim.
My name is Tim Chiara. I live in Nice, and I'm on the Western Region Town Hall. I want to echo Supervisor Sabatier's comments about whether it's a question of how much is it cheaper to abate, or is it cheaper to let people dump free? And it's like you say, it's just a straight equation, you know. And thank you.
Okay. If you unmute and state your name for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Angela Amaral. I wanted to ask on the properties are going to be abated on private properties with severe environmental violations. Are they referred to, like, such as those that are located on waterways? Are they referred to CDFW or the DA for consideration of additional fines and or prosecution? And then one other thing maybe the county could consider would be doing a pilot program of staging debris boxes in areas that are quite a distance from the dumps, consider North Shore. Something along the lines of a smaller scale transfer station of just placing debris boxes 1 day a week and allowing people to dump in that way. I know in our area, we usually don't see a lot of outside dumping, but as these areas are getting abated along Highway 20, we're starting to notice it. In the last 3 days, somebody has come out here and dumped an engine right next to our mailboxes that we're not going to be able to get rid of before spring. So I would just really like to know if the environmental violations are being referred to CDFW or the DA. Thank you.
So I think I'm in the best position to provide a response if that's okay with the board.
Yes,
All right, so we have finally navigated the bureaucracy of CDFW, and we are starting to work and refer cases over to them. We have 2 right now. I'm not going to comment on those any further because there's investigations going on, but we have gotten to the people at CDFW and we've referred these over. There's one in the Etowah Springs area that's very of real interest to them. So we have started that process, and I would also like to cultivate a relationship with the district attorney's office so that we can refer these over. So I mean, I think we need to have get with them, have a meeting, see what we need to do on our end so that we can prepare a package for them so that they can go ahead and prosecute and get a successful prosecution. So we have made those inroads, and we are starting to do that, at least with CDFW. The DA will still have to work at that relationship.
Thank you for that.
Oh, and I'd just like to also comment, the reason she's seeing all those dumps on Highway 20 is because we've ramped up our operations, and as we start to get into these problem properties that are having these public nuisance issues and non-compliant issues, that's what happens. We come in, we tell them they have to clean up, and then we get this thing where they start dumping all across the county. I think the board's been privy to this over some of our lien hearings, so that's the effect of us, being efficient and effective at our job, and that's something that we're going to have to look to address as this comes up, and as we deal with these problems, they look and dump in other areas, and there'll be a lien hearing coming forward where we'll discuss this, where we had one property where they started dumping RVs all over Spring Valley. So that's just just a reaction to what happens when you start doing efficient and effective code enforcement.
Thank you for that. Is there any other public input?
Juliet Carrera, Upper Lake. Just to build on what was the Zoom attendee said and what Marcus just said, I also encourage you to work with the Water Board, who's responsible for water quality. CDFW is not. And I say that because there's a project or dump site in Nice, Marin Street. And I was just recently up there with some neighborhood people. And there was chicken manure and soil in a stream, and submitted that to the Water Board, and they immediately took it. So I encourage you to work with the Water Board. I think you're going to have more speedy response from them than CDFW because of water quality. Thank you.
Did they give you any, like a response or like an email or something?
Yes,
Could you forward that to them so they could see? the
I'd be happy
process?
to.
Excellent. Is there any other public input? All right, if there's none, I'll bring it back to the board. I know that there's a couple things mentioned. I know universal trash has been talked about before. I know that Supervisor Steele, previous Supervisor Steele, I know they were looking at that then. It hasn't come up since. I know that's always a topic in my town councils. And then also the tax. There used to be, previous to like the 80s, I think, there used to be your garbage would go to your tax bill. Well, for some reason, Lake County opted out of that, I think, or something like that. I know, I forgot if I talked to you about it, Lloyd, but I know that Lake County had opted out of that in the 80s or something along those lines. And so now if we were to try to implement that, it would be a difficult task. So, because that's what a lot of other counties in the United States do, is they add it to their tax bill so that people have to have garbage. That's something that, you know, I've been looking at, but it's like I keep hearing that we can't. Because we opted out of it in the 80s. But there may be a way, I don't know. But I just wanted to mention that I've heard that before. I know. So, did you have something?
I do. I want to thank you guys for what you're doing. That's amazing. I know I can't stand it when people are dumping, and we've actually had that issue on our own property. And where my son almost jumping a dirt bike almost landed on somebody's garbage. And it happened to be a school teacher that dumped it. But we made him come back and pick it up. So I, kind of going off of what Mr. Bruno has said, I'm thinking that maybe a trial introduction system where we do it the first Monday of the month or something like that, free dump days, to see if something like that would work. Might be a good idea to kind of put our foot in the door and kind of get us started, just a suggestion. I really like the carrot and the stick, though, where you guys are trying to start prosecuting those that are creating this crime, because I think letting these smaller crimes go can escalate because they're laxed about it and they're getting away with it. So I just think it's horrid, and I really don't like it. Recycling, I know that there's not a lot of recycling in the county right now. It's difficult for people, and that's another avenue that I think would help with some of it. And I think it would be nice to get some recycling going. That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just a comment. I appreciate the presentation and the work and trying to get ahead of all these dumping problems. Thank you. And I do like the idea of exploring, you know, what we can afford as far as additional, doing some free dump days. I don't know right now how that works, but I think it's a good idea to have it on the radar to look into.
If there's nothing else, is there anything else to close or anything like that? All right, with that, appreciate the this presentation, and I appreciate allowing us to take the time to allow the Upper Lake Ad Hoc Committee to express the work that they've put into this as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and close this item in 6.10. We'll go on to 6.10. It's a little behind. After this, we'll go ahead and do lunch, but we'll go on to this one because it's right. Yeah. So we'll do 6.10. Does that work? All right. Presentation of code enforcement final draft drone usage policies continued from December 17th, and we'll go ahead and give the floor to community development.
Mireya Turner, Community Development Director. We will provide a very brief overview presentation of our development of our draft drone usage policy. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so as you guys know, we were fortunate to be funded again for a second round of Proposition 64 Cohort 3 funding for cannabis code enforcement. And that resource has provided us the funding for some specialized tools that we are utilizing for cannabis code enforcement. We started with some satellite imagery that was kind of new at the time, and now we have moved on to development of a drone program. And so we have been working on equipment purchases, training, and policy development for a little over a year. We have done extensive consultation with both our county council and Civica Law Firm, who's a law firm that is has their expertise in California code enforcement. And so we have developed a 3-part policy. The first policy is a policy on inspection warrants that outlines the process for assessing privacy expectations, scope, and legal requirements ahead of our drone use. And then policy 2 is a drone operations policy, which has detailed step-by-step processes, roles, and responsibilities for each staff person involved. And the third policy is a records retention policy, which outlines how we'll manage footage, store it, redact it, and release it when necessary. I'm just going to pass it off to Marcus for a quick kind of scope and benefits.
All right, and I will be brief as well. The scope of this, obviously, there's some issues that we have to take into account, and that's the Fourth Amendment regarding unlawful searches, and then also the expectation of privacy. So we have to balance that with also our main goal, which is collecting evidence to determine or substantiate there's a violation. So the scope of this is that we're going to basically look to be doing this from public areas, flying in public space, launching from public vantage points. We're not going to be flying over people's properties. We're going to have suspicion before we go over. We're not just going to randomly fly over people's properties. We're going to have a basis or a reasonable suspicion violations are existing or occurring on the property. We will be exercising the open field doctrine. If there's not a house on the property, the courts have said that you can go on that property. Of course, we're not going to fly over it unless we believe there are no infringements on people's rights or their expectation of privacy. But if there is an open field and it goes through the proper channels and it's in compliance with our policy, there is that small percentage where we may fly over that. Again, the purpose of this is to combat unlawful cultivation of cannabis. This is a step that we're taking to show that we are serious. Illegal cultivation of cannabis can no longer occur in this county. If you're doing it, you need to do it the right way. You need to do it in compliance with our code. And this is a tool that'll help us address that. So this is a message to the public. If you're doing this in a non-compliant manner, I would advise you to stop, and we will have this drone technology to help us make those cases and to take those actions. And then the benefits. The benefits is this will increase our efficiency. This will also aid in officer safety. No longer do we have to go on those properties or put our officers in those situations that can cause them injuries on the job and also be unsafe to their own personal health. And then also it'll help us to assess a wide vast of land rather than just walking through the property. We can do this, we can step up and be more efficient in our processes. So that's basically all I have.
And just a final note, we through this process, we're able to get 4 CDD staff members licensed as FFA pilots. So that's been a very exciting process for our team, and we just look forward to getting these drones in the air and seeing how we can improve our code enforcement division with that technology.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Pyska.
So are we not going to use the satellite software anymore?
We are continuing to use satellite imagery that's available to us through an MOU we have with CDFW.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, and is that satellite imagery and drone imagery, is that going to be used for inspections or just the drone footage will just be reactionary if there's a complaint?
So what the purpose of the drone would be there would be a very small percentage of instances where we would just operate a drone and then substantiate a violation and issue a notice for that. The purpose of the drone is to get the evidence, to get an inspection warrant. At the end of the day, I'm of the firm belief you have to have boots on the ground. You have to be directly there to understand the extent and the scope of what is occurring and the effect it may have on surrounding property. So the purpose of the drones are to get the evidence, to get an inspection warrant, get on the property, and fully understand the issues that are occurring on that property. But there may be that small situation where the violations are very evident or very apparent, and in those cases, we may go ahead and just issue a notice based upon that. But we are aware of some jurisdictions that just issue notices based on their drone footage. They were wrong, and now they're dealing with some legal issues on that. So we're not going to fall into that trap. We're going to make sure we're on top, we have boots on the ground, and we're understanding it directly what the issue is.
Okay, so annual inspections are still gonna happen in person?
Annual inspections will still happen in person, although in that regards, we have consent from the permittees, and also there's a code that says that they have to cooperate with inspection. In those cases, we would use drone, and one of our planners is licensed as a drone pilot. So in that case, we would also use it in that context as well, when the planning division determines that they would like to use the drone.
Okay.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Yeah, thank you for being patient and bringing this back, but also for creating this policy. I just want to clarify, because I feel like you said that a CDD drone operator has the ability to just deploy a drone if they feel it meets the criteria. From what I'm reading, you need a warrant to use the drone, because it says you need CDD drone operations must obtain an inspection warrant prior to engaging in any drone operations, right?
So there's situations where inspection warrant is required, and there's situations where an inspection warrant is not required.
So that's under default procedure.
Yeah. Well.
It is the default.
Okay.
So, if there's a case where it's an open field, there's no expectation of privacy, we're in a public vantage point in a public road, we will fly it straight up and focus it in using readily available technology. To go onto the property, we would get inspection warrant. Now, those cases where there's an expectation of privacy, for example, a person's backyard, we will get an inspection warrant, and then we will fly it from the street, get the information we need, and then we will get a second inspection warrant to actually access and go onto the property.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. The purpose behind this is to find illegal grows.
Yes.
One of the major purposes is to find illegal grows. I'm just going to put my paranoid hat on. It says, where am I at here? In the Exhibit A, prohibited uses. I'm just wondering if we can identify specifically, we're here to take pictures, we're not here to do facial recognition, we're not here to do license plate reading, because that would be an addition to what you're already kind of set to do. I'm wondering if that can be added in the prohibited uses to ensure we're not enhancing our technology without checking in as to, is this part of our privacy guidelines, that we're not directed to identify human beings, we're here to identify plants. At this moment in time, until further necessary warrants or inspections are needed, the basis for this use is to identify, am I looking at cannabis plants without a permit?
So a lot of times cannabis plants, you can't see those. What you see is the infrastructure, and it's an area conducive for cultivation. And you see high fences, you see water tanks, you see hoop houses, you see things that are conducive to growing. So the drone would get up there, give us that information, then we would use that for inspection warrant, get on there, actually determine that those are cannabis plants. They're not hemp plants, they're not zucchinis, they're not cucumbers, they're not tomatoes. There are instances where people put hoop houses up and grow vegetables that are legal and can be grown. So the issue is to get up there, determine that we have the probable cause to get an inspection warrant, go on there, determine that they are cannabis plants, and then determine how many plants there are, and so that we can prepare a notice of violation, the proper notice of violation for the penalty for cultivating without the proper permits or in compliance.
Well, my request would be if the board so says, to identify the specific purpose of just taking pictures for the identification of cannabis plants, illicit cannabis production, not for facial recognition, not for any other purpose, unless warrant specifies, or I don't know. The technology's moving fast. The technology has potential uses that is very intrusive in ways that we need to be wary about, and I don't see anything that prohibits that type of usage in what I'm reading. And my second comment is on reporting. I don't see any report back to the Board of Supervisors. For example, when you guys have an emergency abatement that you do, you are mandated to come back to the board and let us know about it. I think that's a little much to ask you to come every single time you need to use it, but it would be nice to get an annual report. How many times have you used the drone? I don't need to know the properties, but for example, during our government workshop, would be great to get an annual report of what kind of uses, what kind of issues have you seen, just to better understand how this is benefiting us, because it's such a sensitive technology that is being used. That would be my request for any potential changes to the policies.
I'm okay with it.
Thank you for that.
Did you have any?
I have a recommendation then, if we are to become more specific regarding the purpose, that we do not place it within the prohibited uses, but rather more towards the beginning where we're stating the purpose of the policy. That way it wouldn't be as limiting. The prohibited uses already does specify that we're not to harass a certain person, we're not to capture somebody or go after somebody based on their personal characteristics, and so, but it would be consistent with the spirit of implementing this policy to have that more detailed information towards the beginning.
I'm good with that.
Right. Any other comments from the board? Anyone from the public would like to speak on this? Open it up.
Yeah, I just when I hear things that don't make sense, I usually think, well, maybe there's something wrong, and I try to do research on it. I want to use the word, 1985, I was in the College of Sequoias. My geology teacher, just jokingly to us, said, ladies, you know, they have satellites in the sky that can see you in your backyard in your bikini, so smile and wave. So what I don't understand is that's 1985, and we have satellites that can determine that back then. We don't need this technology is what I look at this. I'm trying to save the county money. Thank you.
Any other folks in the chambers? Anybody on Zoom? Or actually, go ahead, come up.
I just want to make a comment, to what you had mentioned, facial recognition. The drones that we have purchased do not have facial recognition within it, where that's not something that the drones are capable of doing.
Appreciate that.
And I want to emphasize, there's no enhanced technology on our drones. We didn't purchase drones with enhanced technology. This is commonly available, readily available technology that anybody can possess. And I do also want to give some context here. These grows are not occurring in areas that usually have expectation of privacy. They're usually out in remote areas, away from houses, away from kind of in the rural areas. And so because they're in that areas, that decreases the level of expectation of privacy and infringing or being intrusive.
I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
This is a drone policy, not about a specific drone type. And as we move forward in the years and we do get a new drone, it might have that technology. And I think anyone, no matter what property you're on, whether it's in the middle of nowhere, if it's your private property, you deserve a certain level of privacy. So I think that it's a sensitive technology. I want to put it in your hands to put it to good use. And I think it will be used appropriately, but when things are in writing, it just makes sure that it holds ourselves accountable to what exactly are we planning to do with the technology we're wanting to utilize.
I think I understand now. You think about future in future instances.
Because it doesn't speak to the specific drones that you have, it's just a drone policy as a whole.
Okay.
All right, so if there's no one else on Zoom or anything like that, I'll bring it back to the board. I think this is a presentation, so I don't think there's any action that needs to be done. So,
I know that I wasn't sure if there was three.
yeah, there was.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
As for recommendation. or something.
yeah, for the report and for the update to the purpose.
So with that, thank you again for another presentation. All right, so I will open public comment to allow for a Zoom. All right, please unmute and state your name for the record. And after this, I will close public input.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I might have raised my hand a little late. My name's Angela Emerald. I just had a question about the drones. In areas where you cannot launch from a public, Marcus, you were saying that you would launch from a public field or a public area. What is the range on these drones? Because some of these areas don't have a public area. I think you know where I'm talking about, but they don't have a public area where you can launch from. So what is the average distance these drones can go? And how do you address it when a parcel that you're trying to look at is surrounded by private property?
So a public vantage point is anything that a person that can commonly access. It could be an easement, it could be a roadway, it could be a hill area, it could be a public area that's not fenced off, it could be an open field. But when we do get to the urban areas, this is where we have a code supervisor who will be in the field overseeing a code enforcement officer, and the instructions and the use of the drone will be specific to that property which we have reasonable suspicion of violation is occurring. The drone will then go up, it will then focus down on that property, it will focus on that area. It will be specific to that area, it will not try to go into other people's areas. And really that's the only best way I can answer that question. Now, there is going to be a learning curve. Drone technology and case law has not caught up to the uses of drone and drone technology. I think recent events in the news have brought that all to our forethought and attention. So we are going to be responsible when doing this. We respect our residents. We are not in a position and not going to violate their rights. We are going to do this in a responsible manner, and we're going to make sure that we do it by the book and also by the guidance of our county council, and make sure that we have reasonable suspicion and make sure that we're only capturing that property. If there are instances where other issues are captured, we will go through the proper steps to remedy that situation. But again, the goal and the intent is to use it not in densely populated areas. It's more for those rural areas where the bigger cultivation is occurring.
All right. With that, public input is closed. I think if there's no other comments, I think we'll go ahead and close this item on the agenda, and we'll go to a lunch break. I appreciate the presentation again. And so we will come back at 1:40 for our lunch and continue on with the actual timed item. It's a little behind schedule, but which would be 6.11, right?
You do this.
Probably want to. Just push it.
Okay.
Don't be afraid.